Hello, everyone. My name is Whitney Hawkins, and today we're going to be going through how to enter in a new employee record into the system. We're going to start by going to Help/Tools. We're going to scroll down to Tools, down to System Setup, and then over to Employees. Right now, I'm looking at a list of all the employees that I have already entered into my system. If I want to add a new one, I'm going to come down and click on the green Add button. I'm going to go through all the information that I would recommend that you enter into the system from top to bottom. We're going to go through all of these different tabs so that you know what you need to be taking care of when you are entering in a new employee. I'm going to first start with the employee ID. I always recommend that your employee ID be the first letter of your first name and then your last name. So for instance, if I were entering in my employee ID, I would want to enter in W. Hawkins. Okay, so we'll enter in my first and last name, Whitney Hawkins. My status will always show as active. Okay, when you're entering in a new employee record, it will always show as active. However, when you open up the drop down, you do have the option of inactive and deleted. Those are there for you for purposes such as if an employee were to go on leave, say maternity leave or some sort of medical leave or family leave, whatever the case might be, you could mark their status as inactive, which means it basically just takes away their rights to the website for the time that they are on leave until they come back, at which time you can mark their status back to active and all their credentials are going to be considered the same. We then are able to open up the title and position. We want to make sure that we are choosing the title of the employee. You will notice that you have a lot of different options such as adjuster or agent manager. The reason that this shows all of these, your titles and positions are shown in 4 different areas. So you will see it here in the employee record. You'll see it in your company contacts when you're entering in new companies. You will be able to see it for your referral sources and things like that. So that's why they're all jumbled. However, if you notice, you do have estimator, field technician, general manager, office manager, we have project manager, president, whatever the case might be, you can choose their status, title, or position. So let's say I'm a field technician. You then want to make sure that you're entering in initials. I always recommend doing first, middle, and last, just in case you happen to have 2 employees who have the first or have the same initials, both first and last. The initials show up when you go through the system and you do your name, date, and timestamp. Okay, so you just want to make sure that you are entering in your initials. So I'm going to go ahead and enter in my initials. You can enter an address if you want to. I would recommend that it would be a company address and not a personal address. Anything that you enter into this site, I recommend would be more company related rather than personally related. Okay, so if you want to enter in the company address, you certainly can. You have 5 different areas. Numbers. I always recommend that the first 2 areas be work-related numbers. Okay, the first 2 numbers will run on reports that have to do with the employee if you happen to run a report. Those first 2 numbers are going to show up, so I recommend those being work-related. You want to make sure that you are entering in an email address into the system so that they are able to use the email integration service so that they can email in and from the system. Okay, so make sure that you are entering in an email address for your employee. Username, you can either just simply click on use email address if you want to. So let's go ahead and, Okay, so if I want to use my email address as my username, I can do that. When you're initially setting up an employee, I would just go ahead and recommend to generate a password. Your strength has to show good. Okay, in order for your profile to save, your strength has to show as good. Okay, so when you generate the password, it automatically brings you to that strength. Your employee is then able to go in and change their password at any point in time once they initially log into the system with the generated password. Okay, now we're going to scroll down. The next thing we want to make sure that we keep in mind, you want to make sure that you are allowing them rm.net access. Okay, if they are given mobile access, then you want to make sure that you click on allow rm.mobile access as well. This allows them to be able to access both the .NET and the mobile site. Right here it shows user locked for password reset. If I were to click on this button, basically that is saying that the user cannot request to have a new password. You have to go in and send them the new password link. Okay, so I always recommend to keep that unchecked so that at any point in time, if your employee forgets their password, they can do it themselves. You don't need to be involved. All right, now we're going to open up the login type dropdown. Your login type has to do with the kind of permissions, basically, or the range of abilities that you have within the system. The user login type is going to be considered just a basic use. Okay, basically, they can only view the jobs that they are directly assigned to on an employee role. They cannot see any other job. They can only see their jobs. Okay, so their dashboard view will be a little bit smaller. They won't have as much information listed. They will only be able to see jobs that they are personally listed and working on. Power user status. They are able to see every job that has been entered into the system, whether or not they are directly assigned. Okay. However, they are not able to do any of the back end stuff like we are doing right now. Okay, so they cannot go in and change or edit any information that you have already set up for your system. They are just able to view all of the jobs. They can view all of the financials if they have that permission, and so on and so forth. Administrator role basically is able to do everything. The administrator role is able to do everything in the back end, everything in the front end, any kind of editing, adding, deleting, anything like that that you can think of. The administrator has the right and ability to do so with this login type. I recommend only having a couple administrator login types within your office. That way those 2 or 3 people are in constant communication, so if anything does get changed in the system, they know about it, and it's not just some random thing that can happen by anybody. Okay. Your dashboard view. Your production dashboard view I recommend for most anybody, unless you are specifically in sales and marketing, at which point I would choose sales marketing dashboard view. The production view is really basic to everybody. So estimator, project manager, technician, accounting, even sales marketing, honestly, they can still get information from that dashboard view. However, if you are in sales marketing, I recommend that you be the one to, of course, use the sales marketing dashboard view, but you want to make sure that you are choosing one of them. If we scroll down here to the bottom, you notice it shows fax service setup. If you have an eFax or a MyFax or any kind of fax.com account, you have the ability to set that up here for each individual employee to give them the ability to fax your subs or anybody really from the system. So if you have an online fax account and you don't use just a traditional fax machine and you want to set that up, this is where you're going to set that up. You want to use the account email that MyFax or eFax is set up for, and you want to make sure that you fax send format at whatever your eFax is or whatever your MyFax is. Okay, so at MyFax without whatever.com, and then from fax number. So what is your fax number? So you want to make sure you are typing in your fax number here so that they know where it's coming from when you send out the fax. Okay. Now over here to the right, you want to make sure that you are choosing a home office. Okay, if you have numerous offices, this is important that you choose a home office for your employees. When you choose a home office, it then adds them to the drop down when you are adding employees to a job. If they are not selected a home office, they will not show up in that drop down menu. So you need to make sure that you are choosing a home office for your employees. It doesn't mean that they are only given access to that office. It just means that that is the office that they work out of. Down here is where you give them the ability to log into an office. You can choose to give them the ability to log into all offices by clicking on control and clicking on all offices, or you can only give them access to one office. Whatever you want to do for that employee, you know what's best. You can also scroll down here to the very bottom and choose to auto log in. So if they're only given permission to one office, I would also recommend that you go ahead and automatically log them into that office so they are not even shown an office selection. They just go straight into the system when they log in. Okay, once you have entered in all of this information, we want to make sure that we are clicking on save. Okay, before we move on, you want to make sure that you click on save. Okay, I'm not going to save because I do not want to add this into the system because I'm already there. So we're going to go through the rest of how to add in a new employee. So now we have saved in this initial information. We're going to move on to personal information. Here's where you will type in more, again, the personal information for this employee. Again, we have the option for gender. You want to choose to enter in the hire date, if date, their pay type, how do they get paid, pay rate, if you want to enter in a yearly sales goal for that specific employee. You do have the option to calculate commissions in the system. We do calculate commissions based on loss type, and we do calculate commissions based off of 3 different ways: invoiced, collected, and gross profit %. Okay, this is hard-coded, so it does have to be loss type and invoice, collection, gross profit. This is the only way that the system is able to gather commissions. You also have an area for drug test if you want to enter in a drug test date, if they were released or if they were fired, release reason. You again over here look to the right, you have the result of the drug test if you want to enter that information. Driver's license number, if they do driving for you and they're driving a company vehicle and you need their driving information, you can enter it in here. Emergency contact. Okay, a checkbox for eligible for rehire. This is very helpful, honestly. If you go into the system and it is someone else who, someone applying who has already worked for the job, you'll be able to see if they are even eligible for rehire. Again, after you've entered this information, you want to make sure that you click on save. We then move on to permissions. Permissions is where you're going to be able to really decide what your employees are able to do. Okay, so this is where we get more specific. Going through all of this, basically you want to just make sure that you are giving them the permissions that you want them to have. It is for each individual employee. This is not company-wide. It's not the same for every employee unless you want it to be. Okay, you still have to individually go in and make sure that you check all the permissions that you want them to have. I recommend that you click on the button toggle all and then go through and just possibly uncheck the areas that you do not want them to have access to. Okay, so let's say I don't want them to have access to work orders. I don't want them to have access to merge templates or manager dashboards or inspections or utilities or charges. I just want them to have access to this stuff. Okay, now I will give you a little heads up. There is a PDF document. If you go to help/tools and go to your university website and go to training documents, there is a document underneath the administrator role that will give you an idea of what every single permission is. Okay, so it will go step by step what permission you are actually giving them. If you're not sure what it is that you're looking at, definitely use that as a reference tool as you're going through and giving permissions. Okay, again, once you've entered in all your permissions, you want to make sure you click on save. We're going to move on to reports permissions. Again, this is where all of your reports are listed. Now giving them permission to run certain reports. The system can run a ton of reports, okay? So if you don't want them to be able to run certain ones, again, you want to come in here and make sure that you check the ones that you do want them to run. So I again recommend you click on toggle all and then go through and uncheck the areas that you do not want them to be able to run reports for. Okay, now once you have done this, you want to make sure you click on save. After you click on save, you want to make sure that you click on allow reports. Right here it shows uncheck this box to expand and select individual reports you would like this employee to have access to. Note, future released reports will appear without permission until selected. So what this means, when I click on allow reports, I do not want to click on save at this point. I do not want to click on save. When I click on allow reports, now anytime a new report is added into the system, which with new releases, we tend to add new reports. Anytime a new report is added into the system, you will be notified so that you know you have to go in and make sure if you want them to have the ability to run that report. If you do not click on this button and you do not click on allow report, any new report that gets added into the system, whether you give them access to it or not, they will have access to it, okay? So when you click on this, it just basically notifies you anytime a new report is added into the system, and you know you need to go in and give them permission or not give them permission if you don't want them to run it. Again, do not click on save after you click on this box, okay? Now that is going through and adding in a new employee into the system. Now when you go through all the different tabs, all of their information will be listed. You are able to run reports on all of this information, so if you ever need to run a report on your employees, you are able to do so. If you have any questions regarding this, please feel free to visit your university website. Click on the rm.university website. You will then want to click on training documents. You will want to click on administrator. And then you will want to click on view PDF for adding employee records. There's also a PDF for adjusting an employee record. Okay, so if you have any questions, please feel free to refer back to your university, or you can get in touch with your direct trainer, whether it be myself, Dawn Bryant, or Lisa Paris. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope everybody has a wonderful day.